you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first virtual Humanitarian Network Partnership Weeks event, and thank you for connecting from all over the world. We are honored to have moderators and panelists from the Ronin Institute, from the World Health Organization, from the International Organization for Migration, Crisis Management and Disaster Response Center of Excellence, the private sector, as well as attendees from a number of organizations and member states. The imminent COVID-19 pandemic threat to humanity, more so to vulnerable communities affected by conflict and natural disasters, requires more than ever a joint response from all stakeholders, from all governments, non-government partners alike, to look at available solutions with a new keen glance that will produce basically out-of-the-box ideas for us to do our job better. We're looking for better, smarter, quicker, creative, and generally acceptable ways to support humanitarian response, humanitarian action, while utilizing available resources from the technical world, from technical experts such as AI, artificial intelligence, social media, and epidemiological intelligence, basically. As funding dwindles and humanitarian needs increase, we've seen the statistics today, 1 in every 33 people in the world, which is 235 million people, require humanitarian assistance, and we have to be mindful of that. As funding dwindles and needs increase, there's an urgent need to effectively plan better for better cost-effective humanitarian response programs on current future threats to safeguard vulnerable populations from being marginalized and in some cases forgotten. Colleagues, there's also another important aspect that is the complication that infectious diseases, both those we know widely already known to us and we deal with every day, which have killed hundreds of thousands of people year in, year out. And of course, the new ones that have ravaged our world today, like the COVID-19 virus and pandemic, these might appear in the future. They may pose, pose to already complex and dangerous missions to our humanitarian officers and workers. Basically, what I'm saying is a world that is already complicated, a world that is already complex in the way we manage our response, will be further exacerbated by the pandemic. I've been informed, and as I know full well, this priority topic will be looking at just that. How do we operate in a world that is changing so fast in front of us? The need to use technology to forecast, predict, and anticipate action at the strategic, operational, and local levels to strengthen capacity. I dare say to build also capacity. And also when we talk about strengthening capacity of our national and international responders, we have to focus on learning from each other. Because in my world, in my life, I have learned from my local partners more than I could have ever learned from the international partners. So it's a mutual sort of exchange relationship that we have when we talk about capacity strengthening. OCHA is greatly interested in the deliberations of this session, for your contribution, and thanks again for your time to take the time to participate in this session and to continue to discover new ways to improve emergency response through this session. The objectives of this session, if I may: how best can we improve the health situation awareness on COVID-19 or any other infectious diseases? As I said before, we have lived with these diseases, we have just managed, or we manage them better. How best can we improve the health situation awareness on COVID-19, including future ones for humanitarian response planning in both onset and protracted crisis settings? 2, how can open source information channels and information technology be used to harvest medical intelligence information supported by explainable artificial intelligence during a humanitarian response program, and how effective can it be? 3, how can information technology coupled with social media be effectively utilized with AI to meet the needs of diverse people, populations, including marginalized communities during an emergency response? Here, my colleague has asked me to share some of the background, my work in Nigeria and other settings. And Walter, I'll be very quick in this deliberation. I see Irene and others online. It's good to see you. It's good to have all of you in this conversation. I'll focus on 3 things, because when I start talking about the humanitarian response, I get very excited, and this is not what it's about. It's about using technology the best way possible. So maybe I'll zero in on that. Just as most of you know, and you are partners and practitioners, and you know exactly what it means to be in a zone where security is a huge risk. So be it in Nigeria, be it in Somalia, be it in Sana'a, in Yemen, or even in a natural disaster setting. When security is a risk, information is everything. The timeliness of the information, the critical need for getting the right information to the right decision makers and or humanitarian actors at the right time can save lives. Information can create panic and situations where colleagues are literally afraid, and there's a need as practitioners, there's a need as leaders to ensure that this information is out there, again, in the right doses at the right time. When Walter asked me to talk about, sorry, my screen is shaky a little, to talk about, my experiences, I thought I was zeroing in on this critical piece, information. The second thing is, I think for the last 10, 20 years, we've used AI and the various, tools that we've used in needs assessments. And it's been critical to find, to use these tools to be able to get to people. I don't like saying populations because they're people and their faces and their names behind them. People, for a long time, we've been able to reach people that we haven't reached before. The final thing I'll talk about, and this is not about this people's experiences, but to learn from practitioners like yourselves around the table. The final thing I'll say is, I was always fascinated by aerial shots from different satellite imagery to be able to tell whether the war-torn zone is indeed war-torn, whether the non-state armed groups are helping their people who are under their purview, farmlands or not. We could do things with technology that we couldn't have done with humans. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole time, but I will be listening intently, and I'll be following also some of the issues in the chat box. Walter, colleagues, I'll stop here. I think, let me go back and see whether you wanted me to touch on anything else. I think that's it. I will stop here. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very interesting and very important speech. And I'm very lucky because you covered many of my topics. So I can shorten my presentation a little bit. Okay, thank you very much, Adam. And I keep in touch, and we will write the report in the next 2 weeks.
I'll stay for another 15 and listen to you, and then I've cleared my calendar for a few more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, participants, my name is Walter David. My background is in the military. I spent many years in modeling simulation, in capability development, also in project management, few years in the United States. And I'm the organizer, together with Dr. Michelle King-Okoye, of this session. Actually, I'm still active duty military, but I'm transitioning. I think in 1-2 years, I'm going to retire. And I've always been fascinated by the humanitarian sectors. I attended few courses with the OCHA. I want to thank Adam for a very interesting and very enlightening speech. So she covered many topics of our session. so I can go faster. Our objective is to improve situational awareness for planning and for conduct of operations. You see how protracted crises are longer and longer. There are crises that last more than 7 years as an average. And the pandemic has exposed our vulnerabilities and challenge everyday humanitarian actors. So they complicate already complex situations. So our objective is to explore if medical intelligence or health intelligence, harvesting from big unstructured data available on the internet, on social media services, on literature, on local press, other online resources, can help in provide analysts improve the situational awareness for better decision making. Such technologies can help in forecast, predict, anticipate action, and this approach is very complex. So it is not possible for I don't think that international organizations alone or NGOs alone they can put a big effort in this, because it requires an holistic approach. So we need support from the academia, we need support from the private sector, and also sometimes coordination with the military that have some capabilities. The scenario, actually what we want to achieve in the background, you see the scenario is already the Borno. What we want to achieve is the awareness of the importance of medical intelligence for early warning and for disease detection and anticipate action and response. We want to test a real life scenario, so we didn't prepare a modeling simulation exercise with some fictitious country. We want to support our friend Irina. Was a student together with me in a prep course in OCHA in Berlin 3 years ago, and she's living in a very complex country, deployed with IOM. Also, there is another important aspect that is the ethics and ethical principles, how we can embed them into the artificial intelligence systems, and how we can protect from bias and from discrimination minorities. Michelle is an expert about this. So the structure of the session basically is composed by 3 parts. In the first part, we want to understand better what is the state of the art in the health intelligence, and we get also some field updates from Irene from the field. In the central part, 20 minutes of this session will be devoted to a live demo from Italian company Expert AI. They presented their platform, for their medical intelligence platform, and I asked them to focus directly on this scenario of Borno, especially ID camps, IDPs camps, future and present medical threats, terror risk concerning the population, and you remember Borno is famous for the Boko Haram and some active armed groups that later split. We have ISIS and so on. We have at the end we will have a SWOT analysis that is useful to collect participants' perspectives. Some details about the Borno, just before Irene. Borno is a state in northeastern Nigeria, but Nigeria is a federal state. We are going now in the rain season. There are a variety of diseases, including now COVID. There is insecurity all over the area, especially during the last weeks and days. We received the flash updates from OCHA. There have been attacks against the Damzak town, for example, and also attacks against humanitarians, against humanitarian facilities, against the infrastructures, civilian infrastructures, staff and people kidnapped in camps. ISIS attacks to the army bases and the killings of soldiers. This is something that happened a few days ago. If you just watch the news. Okay, this concludes my presentation about the session, because I want to leave the time to our panelists and subject matter experts. So I close this presentation and I stop sharing. Okay. So please let me introduce Dr. Michelle King-Okoye. She's an expert in ethnic minorities, populations, disparities, and the role of social media. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Walter, for that introduction. And that was quite a lovely presentation as well. Thank you so much for having me. My background is in health sciences, and I'm happy to be here to discuss ethnic minorities. I would briefly touch on artificial intelligence, the disparities, and then, of course, the role of social media. So because I'm sharing my screen, I'm looking at two different screens at the same time, so it's quite tricky. But if you can bear with me, just one moment.
Okay. Yeah, we can see the.
Okay, great. So I'm happy to be here as co-chair for this session, and I am a researcher from the Ronin Institute, and as well as the founder and leader of the Ethnicity and COVID-19 Research Consortium, which was formed at the inception of the pandemic in response to the increasing COVID-19 incidence and mortality rates for ethnic minority communities in developed countries. My focus for this session, as I said, is on ethnic minorities, highlighting the artificial intelligence, the disparities that exist, and finally, the role of social media for these communities. So for this session, the expected outcomes, as you can see, I am hoping that my short presentation will address one main expected outcome with a sub-expected outcome. Firstly, I wish to highlight the ethical principles are significant to medically driven artificial intelligence. This is paramount to all races and ethnicities. But as my focus is on ethnic minorities, I wish to show how critical this is for marginalized communities. I will also briefly touch on how social media can help these communities. Now, with the current mortality rates and increasing susceptibility to COVID-19 infections, due to the nature of transmission and potential spread among populations, AI algorithms, machine learning, and robotics have been instrumental towards governmental policymaking, healthcare decision-making, social distancing measures, quarantine control, and treatment updates for suspected and diagnosed cases. However, current research has shown a severe lack of health and medical data due to lack of representation of ethnic minorities across the globe. And this has contributed sadly to algorithmic bias. Now, as one researcher has pointed out, algorithmic bias and inference can be a veiled type of discrimination that deepens existing social inequalities. Now, there must be some type of algorithmic accountability, ensuring representativeness of all races and ethnicities to reduce bias and stereotypical codes from data sets. So transparency and explainability are critical to ensuring trustworthy systems, taking into account different contexts to prevent pitfalls and enhance inclusivity, thus reducing gaps within historical data sets. Now, while social media and smartphone applications play an important role, whether pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, as well as post-pandemic. Ethnic minorities are sometimes fearful of engaging in a transparent manner due to a lack of safe space to voice concerns, including instances of systemic and structural racism. So it is imperative that ethnic minorities feel supported whilst participating on social media. This calls for a platform that enables a systematic and sustainable approach for marginalized communities. The pandemic has highlighted the pre-existing health, social, and societal barriers that they are faced with. At the moment, these elements are being taken into consideration, and this should be the focus to have that safe space and utilize artificial intelligence in conjunction with social media so that we can, safeguard against current emergencies as well as medical threats. There is a project ongoing at the ECRC, which will sort of like make some, we expect some significant changes with that. And these are my references. And thank you for your attention. It was just a short presentation, keeping in mind that there are other presenters. Thank you very much.
Walter, you're muted.
Walter, your microphone. Unmute your microphone.
Sorry. This was, I still have to learn Zoom better. Sorry for this. Thank you very much, Michelle, for your very interesting presentation on minorities. I would like now to go to the floor to Irene Ogawambwa from International Organization of Migration. She's in Nigeria, and she's very happy to provide us with the last field updates.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to share my screen. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Michelle. And Edem also mentioned most of the issues that I was about to talk about, so I'll make it quite brief. I'm just giving a scenario of Nigeria as it is presently and the issues concerning a humanitarian response. So basically, Nigeria is a very complex, protracted crisis. We are operating in a very challenging environment where there is plenty of issues to deal with, but this is Nigeria specifically, but it could apply to many different scenarios across the world. So the humanitarian crisis background, as you know, or some of you may be aware, the conflict has been going on for the last 11 years. We're in the 12th year now. Majority of the affected population are women and children. And then the armed conflicts have escalated in the case that they are now targeting specifically civilians. And then as of last year, humanitarians have become a target. So since December, for example, 8 humanitarians from INGO, UN, and local NGOs have been abducted or killed, and the number is bigger as you go along. And most of the targets that are taken or abducted include medical personnel. And then, of course, we have the overlying issue of the COVID pandemic, which is not making it any easier because it's already a complex emergency. The humanitarian needs are quite high. And then when you look at the operating context, we have very high, very huge humanitarian needs, and the funding is decreasing. I'll show you the next slide that shows the funding as and the target of the people that we are targeting in Nigeria. All key sectors are represented. Whether the government is in the the IDP context, they are extremely overstrained because we have around 8 million or plus people affected by the conflict. 1.7 of these are IDPs. Then we have returnees coming back from Cameroon, from Chad, back into the same locations. And definitely they'll also be needing help. And those are targeted as well. And then we have the host community that is harboring all that is hosting most of the IDPs. I think most of 60% of the IDPs are living in the host communities. So we see that also the host communities are a key stakeholder here. And then we have the, of course, I've already mentioned the unpredictable security situation, not only in terms of attacking civilians, but also in terms of access, where there's the roads are inaccessible. We have about 1 million people that we cannot access. We cannot provide humanitarian assistance. And even the ones that we're providing humanitarian assistance to, we cannot cover everyone. So the needs are really huge, as I have already mentioned. Then the perception and misperception of IDPs regarding the COVID or any other disease that may arise. So there is a lot of misinformation, for example, in the context of IDPs. Of course, I think it was also clear in other locations that the disease only affected travelers or foreigners, and also foreigners are the ones that are transmitting it. So there was a lot of misconception, a lot of rumors that also affected the sensitization of the IDPs in this context. Then, of course, we have several languages in the humanitarian context, where the internally displaced persons are not coming from one location, but diverse locations. Thankfully, we have Translation Without Borders that was helping with the translation of material, especially COVID, and they also do translate others, maybe malaria or measles. For right now, the prevailing disease is malaria and measles, because we are heading into the rain season, and with the rain season, it comes with floodings, a lot of floodings, and a lot of respiratory infections. The other thing that we have, of course, it's not one displacement, but as and when attacks occur, there is continuous displacement. So people can be displaced for 3 or 4 times in a year, or even more, depending on where their locations are. And then also, of course, the humanitarian IDPs are living in very inadequate conditions with very high protection concerns and health facilities. Only 54% of the health facilities in Borno or in the Bay State areas are functional. And then recently, for example, in the last few weeks, we have got attacks directly targeting hospitals. So either they're targeting hospitals for destruction, or stealing drugs, or destroying equipment. So that is another trend that is very recent. In the last month or so, it's become more prevalent. So as I was telling you, the historic trend when it comes to people that are being targeted for response vis-a-vis the people who are in need, and then the amount of money that we're asking. These are just some of the tables we see over the years. We can only target, we cannot target everyone, and even when we get the funds can only a very small percentage, as you may see here. For example, last year we only got only almost half of what we requested, and this year, as we go on, of course, we shall see how much we can get. So this is just generally the map of Nigeria, showing the locations where this is where the Northeast conflict is, but there are other conflicts, of course, in the country. We have this Katsina, Zamfara, where there is harder farmer conflict. That is also where you hear most of the kidnappings on the news and abductions. It's around this place. Then we have the Biafra-related conflict around here in the middle here, and then of course we have another we have criminality and a lot of displacement, also terrorism. And actually, I was reading when I was doing my research, it was indicated that Nigeria ranks 3rd on the global terrorism index, where it stated that Nigeria was ranking 3rd in the global terrorism index of the countries affected by that. So we can see that the security issues are quite many. So this is where we're talking about specifically for this conversation. We shall just talk about Borno, though all the red states that we're seeing here are all affected by the conflict, and the displacements are within these locations back and forth. but the majority are in Bono. So when we bring it closer, this is a different camp location. We have about 285 camps in general, spread out. They're not together, spread out in different locations. And then we have about 1,000 or so hosting communities where IDPs are being hosted by host communities, and that is, as I earlier said, it is about 60%. So only 49% are staying in the camps, and then the majority of the IDPs are staying in the host community. So when it comes to how the infectious diseases affect humanitarian missions, of course, we've seen that we would need more funds. Of course, having a medical or a disease emergency or epidemic only makes the IDPs already vulnerable, even extremely more vulnerable. Of course, we see reduced resilience of the people, of the IDPs. They cannot do most of the activities they can do. For example, when it came into the lockdowns, I think everything was on a standstill. Most of the IDPs are dependent on 100% of aid, but there's some that would do their own livelihood projects, but those were also automatically stopped, so that escalated even the prices of procurement of items or procurement of medicines and general humanitarian response. And then we of course, in general, when we're trying to do the trajectories of if we had a COVID situation in the camp, how widely it would spread, the numbers were just frightening. So that means that we would have very high transmission rates because of the congestion, because of the fact that the living conditions are not good, the needs are very, very high. And then so the containment and the prevention, well, is very key. So when Walter contacted me about this situation awareness, it reminded me of how we're looking for lots of information at the time between February and September to see how best we can mitigate the transmission, because the trajectory was extremely frightening. So anyway, we're still working on it, and some information has been provided, and I'm sure we shall hear more from the panelists on how best we can go about this. Of course, we have reduced reporting and, of course, discrimination. We've got just a few cases in the camps all around the Bono areas that have been contained. So at the moment, we could say it's still low in terms of transmission, but there's very high community transmissions. And then this is just a picture of one of the camps. It's just one camp. It's called International Camp, and you see on the left the houses, the shelters that people live in case of anything. It's very easy for transmission, and also health-wise, the health concerns are quite huge. This is just another to show you the type of shelters, and of course the shelters have already contributed to the health hazards in the locations. And then here, the situation awareness and decision making regarding data collected. So we use a lot of the CCM site tracker. I'll put the link down there in the conversation. You can go in and look at it. Gives you the site information regarding all the sectors, education, health, so on and so forth. And then you can see basic information about specific site. There are 284, so you can click on and navigate, and then it will show you the amount of information you need. Those those locations that have health facilities and those that don't have, and then the other facilities WASH that could escalate the health risk. Of course, we have the DTM reports, the matrix reports that we have been using for tracking people coming in and out. They are not fenced in, so people can move in and out, even out of the country. So for example, if it is a very easily transmittable disease, just like COVID, it could easily spread. So we, of course, and then we have collaboration between the government and humanitarians. That was very helpful, especially with the Nigerian disease control. And then on the aspect of the security, because the Boko Haram, all the armed groups did not stop even when COVID was going on, or in case there is any other health emergency, they usually continue. So we have to, we had to reduce a lot of footprint because of attacks, but also we had to reduce footprint in the locations because of the COVID. And then we had to do a lot of remote management. So we rely heavily on the UNDSS information for travels into the locations. We also rely on the SIM code coordination with the military to provide for us accurate access. But sometimes, for example, there could be cases in the field and they cannot be taken to the nearest hospital, either because of the access, but also because of the lack of facility, or maybe they just have primary health care and not secondary health care, and also diagnosing of probably new diseases or strange diseases that may come up that were not initially there. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much. You can put your questions in the chat. I could answer, or you can ask through.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Irene, for a very interesting and very passionate demonstration and updates from the field. And I would like now to pass the floor to Dr. Dusan Milanovanovic. He is a solution architect in World Health Organization. Dusan?
Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, just a short correction. I'm not a doctor, but that's okay. my colleague who joined me on this call is doctor. He's Thijs Cornelissen. He's a data scientist in the team. I will tell you a little bit more about in a second. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay. So I hope you can see the presentation on the screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So again, hello everyone. Thanks for inviting us to this conference. Obviously, we are one team, and I will tell you a little bit more about what we do and our approach to public health intelligence, the place of public health intelligence in the context of the care for global health, and our plans for going forward. So obviously, when we talk about events that threaten our health, detecting them, verifying and assessing risks as early as possible is a key to saving lives. And this is one of the strategic objectives of World Health Organization. It's somehow made more urgent or more obvious to everyone in the world lately with the COVID-19, but as many people in the world know, the importance of early detection, verification, and risk assessment was there for a long time. World Health Organization, as you know, has mandate for and obligation to maintain and strengthen global health security. And in that context, public health intelligence is one of the few key disciplines and key activities of our organization. So obviously the starting point is data and information, and nowadays we have abundance of it. It comes from all different kind of sources, and in public health we talk about different kind of public health surveillance, where information can come from sources such as healthcare facilities, clinics, laboratories, pharmacies, news, communities, field workers, hotlines, etc. Some of these sources are publicly available, some are not. So what is our approach to detect public health threats or occurrences that might lead to public health threats as early as possible? Some of the previous panelists mentioned, and we, as I said, we're the same team because we do know that it's not, we cannot look at one event, be it humanitarian or from the onset public health event in isolation from the context that it surrounds. And also this context change in time. And this context is different depending on the local context, on the people, behavior, socioeconomic nature, etc., etc. So our approach to public health intelligence is to try to detect from open sources, from publicly available information, any hazard that is or might lead to a problem with public health, and then to verify it as quickly and as accurately as possible, do rapid risk assessment to provide actionable intelligence for decision making, for response, but also in recovery situations. So as I said, public health intelligence is one of the key disciplines, and it's a mandate of WHO. And the team that is behind an initiative called Epidemic Intelligence from Open Sources, actually since 2017 accepted leadership over the community of the same name. It's a unique collaboration between various public health stakeholders around the globe. It brings together new and existing initiatives, networks, and systems I will show you in a minute, to create basically a unified all hazards, one health approach, so not only humans, but animals and environment, because everything is connected. And basically to support early detection, verification, rapid risk assessment, and then communication of public health threats using publicly available information. Why publicly available information, and why? Because this is our best chance nowadays to detect something early, especially to detect something that is unknown or unusual in an unusual place. Creating community of practice for public health intelligence actually includes member states, international organizations, research institutes, and other partners and collaborators, and that's in the heart of the initiative, I would say. Saving lives through early detection is the ultimate goal of this community and initiative, and providing actionable intelligence where it matters, when it matters, is its ultimate goal. Maybe one other thing, the collaboration itself is basically managed by World Health Organization. And we have a coordination group that is made up of 12 organizations and networks and government bodies who serve 2-year terms. Let me now tell you something more about epidemic intelligence from open sources system. So we actually have a system, we have a solution that is in operations in different forms since 2013, but in this form since 2017. So that system actually supports the community of practice, who are the users of the system. And it serves not only to connect other systems and actors, as you can see in this picture. For example, ProMed, which is probably the first public health intelligence system dating back 1993 when World Wide Web went public. GIFIN, which is an initiative of Public Health Canada, Global Public Health Intelligence Network. Health Map, which is an interesting public health intelligence solution from US as well. And we have a close collaboration with colleagues from Joint Research Center from European Commission, whom we develop and we have been developing historically a lot of capabilities that I will present you in a second. So again, the emphasis is really on the community. We can only discover things and we can only react appropriately if we connect and if we share information and knowledge. And this is behind the initiative and also behind the solution capabilities. So a few highlights about the solution quickly. EAS system, and what we noticed with COVID-19 is maybe interesting to show you and tell you some figures. So the system itself serves to provide potentially useful information from open sources, publicly available information, mostly from publicly available news, to analysts. And in average, before COVID-19 outbreak, we would process and store, actually process much more, but store around 15,000 potentially relevant or articles with or text items with potentially relevant content per day. Since the outbreak began, and as you can see here in this screenshot, basically overnight we had basically an infodemic of potentially relevant information about, and mostly about COVID-19. And maybe it's good to say here, talking about public health intelligence and intelligence in general, there is no correlation, definitely not linear correlation, between the number of news items and the amount of news and the importance of the event, which is something we need to deal with using advanced analytics, which we can call AI or use any other names. I'll tell you about in a second. For your information, the system itself basically is capable to process articles in around 80 different languages all around the globe. Currently on the fly processing articles from 12,000 different websites or web places, around 30,000 news feeds, using also some small piece of social network information from 240 targeted Twitter accounts. And right now we have around more than 50 million text items, news items stored within the system since 2017 mainly. Maybe it's also interesting for you to know that the system actually picked up the first article reporting an unexpected and at that time still undiagnosed pneumonia cases in Wuhan at 3:18 a.m. On 31st of December. And since then, we have this enormous amount of potentially relevant news, 85% of which are actually COVID-19 related. So this is something we need to deal with, and that actually prompts us to urgently reprioritize or prioritize different kind of technological solutions that can help analysts to continue early discovery, not being flooded with potentially relevant information for their purposes. So that actually prompts us to venture more aggressively into using, for example, different machine learning methods. For example, trying to discover which individual articles or which individual text items might contain misinformation or might not be credible for different reasons. And sometimes, if you're an analyst, you would say that non-credible article is something that is noise, and I don't want to look at this. Sometimes, actually, misinformation can be public health threat in itself. It can cause public health threat and public health problems. So our approach to misinformation is maybe interesting. It's definitely different. It's still an experiment. As you can see in this short video, each article is labeled with being credible or not credible, and also type of credibility class. So this one particular is credible itself. It's an automatic assessment by an algorithm. And an algorithm is actually reading the article, is trying to, based on what it learns on a number of non-credible and credible articles, try to judge from the writing style and tone whether this text is potentially credible or not credible. We took a different approach than checking fact checkers because, again, of the inherent bias in anything we humans do, including these algorithms, as some of previous panelists mentioned, but also fact checkers are not perfectly correct, as we know. So this is one approach that we have. As I said, we have infodemics of news, as you can see here. And another approach to infodemics is, instead of having all these thousands and thousands of different news and reading them and trying to discover hidden content, we also have very important project building a summarization algorithm. So basically, the algorithm is reading all these articles and then summarizes articles that have similar content or belong to similar all hazards, One Health category. Both of these projects, my colleague Thais is leading, and we can provide more information if you're interested. Just going back a little bit, so as I said, the system itself is public health, provides different public health intelligence capabilities, and its core, it's really contains natural language processing engine, a pipeline, where we basically process discover news from these 12,000 different websites and process them on the fly, extracting different kind of content, understanding language, doing name identity recognition, translation, extracting tonality, and then trying to basically label the text based on the content. And this is what the EUS system does in its essence. And for the very end, and I finish with this, I think this is important to know. You see this small animation that basically should say the following. Projects that will start very, very soon, in a matter of weeks, would involve enriching approach of using just machine learning and these data mining methodologies for understanding what is going on. So the way forward really, and the way also to have AI with a minimized bias, be it bias based on population or bias based on my current understanding of which kind of mathematical model is best suited for the problem, and then optimizing that, my opinion, to the given data set, which is machine learning all about. We also want to link information from different systems in one globally accessible network of information for knowledge representation and reasoning. That way we can achieve also having a local context and using a local context for decision making, for discovery and then decision making, but also globally learning patterns that might be relevant. And maybe last but not least, there is one other approach. This is a little bit technical slide and you can ignore the content. I won't talk about the content. The title is important. So we want to link different systems and data sets in one globally accessible network, one knowledge graph. And we want to use this knowledge graph to try to understand different features, to use them for predictions and for forecasting later on when the graph grows enough. But in places where we cannot access data, where it's not available for different confidentiality reasons, we are building a platform to basically have this federated learning, where we will not take data out of the confidential places. We will send the algorithm to learn and optimize itself on the data which stays in the protected place, and still use this partially learned model back and then federate with other partial optimums in one global optimum. This is a relatively new feature, but I think very applicable for our global situation. So just to conclude, from WHO side, public health intelligence is our key objective. We invest more and more with partners. We have a global network of partnership, and we are now venturing into creating a global network of information systems, data sets, and if you want, completely openly shared analytics, especially these machine learning models.
Thank you very much, Dusan, for your very interesting presentation. Unfortunately, we are just 15 minutes late. I would like to give the floor to Alessandro Capone, and with his live demo focusing on the Borno scenario. Alessandro?
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter, and thank you to all the organizers of this session to involve expert.ai in this interesting discussion. My name is Alessandro Capone. I am a sales manager at expert.ai, and today, together with my colleague Gianluca Sensidoni, my main goal is to show you the medical intelligence platform that expert.ai have developed using its technology and hybrid artificial intelligence technology that is able to understand deeply the meaning of the text, as in the case similar to human being does when approach a text. Medical intelligence platform, MIP, is a platform able to harvest information coming from social or open source in order to improve the situational awareness and in order to facilitate, to support analysts to have strategic information A few minutes ago, we said that it's important to have information in quickly and precise ways in order to anticipate some problems, humanitarian problem, and so on. Now, I want to, in order to show you how MIP work, I want to show you with a brief live demo how works our technology, Expert.ai technology. As you can see in my screen, I am analyzing a text, document, a news coming from the web in English language, and I will approach its analysis. How Expert.ai technology work in the way that process this text and extract from the text the entities or the concept that are very important in this text, and clusterize this entity basing on their meanings, the concept, not keyword. In fact, in this panel, you can see a cognitive map in which I can see companies, product, but not only this that are a concept, but also action, verb in the red polygon, introduce or cause, use, and so on. How is possible this creation? With one click, I transform unstructured data in a structured one, extracting from this text very important metadata. Yes, by applying a workflow that we know starting from primary school. In fact, I take Expert.ai technology takes this text, split it in many parts, applying a grammar analysis and a logical analysis, sentence analysis, and finally applying the so-called semantic analysis. The last step is the most important one because thanks to this step, I understand if apple, this sequence of character, apples, mean it refers to a multinational technology company or a fruit. In this case, the Expert.ai technology analyzes the context and understand that apple refers to a specific company. Not only this, but also is able to understand that some terms composed by two words refer to a specific concept, like in the case of personal computer. I know that it refers to a single concept. Also, it's important that the semantic analysis is realized by leveraging on a sort of brain, automatic brain that contain all the knowledge of a specific domain. In this case, clicking on Apple, I will see that are in this panel and generic information, generic concepts on the top of computer company, and on the bottom you will see some specific one. And this is very important in order to have a specific extraction of strategic information from one text. I'm analyzing one text, only one text. Also from this text, I analyze and extract main elements, as you can see in the left part of this panel. Or I can categorize this text, or better, what is the main topics of this text? Okay, computer science. And if I click on computer science, I will see some useful information that are present in the text. I want to bring your attention on the fact that there are in the text different keywords, different words that refer to the same domain, the domain computer science. This is important. This is only possible applying a semantic technology like Expert.ai technology. And the other thing is the main sentences. I can extract from a great text, a big text, the main sentences that give me the possibility to resume a text, to understand rapidly what is the main topic, what are the main entities of a text. Last but not least, this technology is able to extract entity and the relation from a text. For example, here you'll see that I have extracted Apple, Steve Jobs, and other things. If I double click on Apple, I will see the how and why this in this graph there are links between Apple and Steve Wozniak or Steve Jobs. In fact, you will see in this panel that there are verbs that connect this information. Apple established it, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Ronald Wayne. This is how our technology, core technology works. Now, imagine to put this engine, this very powerful engine, inside a platform, the so-called medical intelligence platform. And the other great added value of expert.ai technology is that we can work on it and personalize, customize it to be very useful in different domains. In this case, I am showing the panel of this platform, and I will show you main feature. I have a search box, classic search box coming from Google Experience. But on the left side of this panel, you will see the so-called facet. Imagine that facets are sort of different point of view on the data that currently I have downloaded, analyzed, and indexed in the platform. At the moment, I have indexed 2.5 million documents coming from different sources. For example, RSS website, but also Twitter account. Now, after imagine that all the documents that are processed and acquired by this platform have been processed by expert.ai technology. And from every text, I extract in very strategic information, like the thing that I have, the information that I am showing you in the left panel. First of all, you will see the emotion taxonomy. Expert.ai has developed a taxonomy very specific to identify in the text the emotion expressed in the text, not sentiment. 18 different emotions. And using this facet, I can filter the document, the result set, searching for example, hope, for all the document in which is expressed the emotion of hope, for example. As you can see, I select a constraint, and the constraint is visualized on the search bar. Every constraint I select is visualized in the search bar. As I mentioned before, in the left side of the screen, you will see emotion, taxonomy, sentiment, and also crime taxonomy or media topic taxonomy. As you know, taxonomy is a hierarchical organization of topics of interest, and we can customize taxonomy on a specific domain. These are two examples. The first one, crime taxonomy, is a taxonomy focused on the domain of crime. It's very used by law enforcement agency. Or the other one is media topic taxonomy that contain generic taxonomy, generic category topics that is very used by media partner or journalists, for example. As I mentioned before, we are able to extract a specific entity like companies, organization, and we are able to extract very specific topics belonging to taxonomy that we have developed in order to support medical or healthcare or life science analysts. In fact, we have developed the COVID-19 taxonomy, as you see in this panel, or SNOMED city or mesh taxonomy. These are very specific taxonomy that we have developed, started from domain specific vocabulary. Now, the last thing that I want to show you, and then I will focus my session on practical use case, is the geographical information that we are able to extract from text. So we are able to extract information, geographical information and we are able to represent this geographical information on GIS. And in this way, in this demo, we use OpenStreetMap, and we are able to create a polygon in order to create a query that give us all the documents in which are present location belonging to that polygon, that are present in that polygon. Now, I will show a practical usage of this medical intelligence platform. If I switch on tab social impact, I will select, in geo tab, I will select places. And from places, I will choose, I write on this box, Borno. I have Borno State. I can select it. And as you see on the top right of the screen, I have 5,000 results that are talking about Borno State. I can refine my search, my query, using other facets here. For example, in organization, I have Boko Haram. I know that from facets that are 268 documents talking about Boko Haram and also talking about Borno State. Furthermore, I can refine my query if I am interested on kidnapping in Borno State and that involve Boko Haram. I can select this information from crime taxonomy. As you see, there are 53 documents talking about this information. As you see, all the information that I have extracted are represented in different way. I can see them with the result set, classic result set, but also in a graphical way, like in this case. The other thing that I can do with this platform is to save this information, this query, in the form of alert. The alert is not a simple bookmark, but is an alert, a signal that give me a sort of a signal like in the left side, the right side, top right side of the panel, that give me an alert whenever a new document that match with the saved query enter into the platform. In this way, every day the analysts log in this platform could be alerted on the document of this interest. For example, I have saved before this alert, and you can see that the alert is composed by a constraint very useful for your interest. Just a few seconds. Okay. In this case, I have created a Boolean query in which are involved this state, Yobe, Borno, Adamawa, that are states that are mentioned in the previous intervention. And also I will use the semantic technology in order to understand refugee. What is the meaning of refugee? And looking in my brain, the previous mentioned brain, I know that I want refugee in the term of asylum seeker. I can select this meaning and I can find, as you see in this result, all the occurrence, refugee, job state, and so on, all the occurrence of this term. This is very, very important because this is another value that give to the analyst a very precise technique and very precise tool. Last but not least, the final use case is based on a module that we call analytics, in which is possible for analysts to create some useful widget, graphical widgets that are based on the metadata that Expert.ai technology has extracted from text. Here you will see all the category belonging to SNOMED CT taxonomy or mesh taxonomy that are connected with these states. As you can see in this table, I know that there are 41 documents that are talking about poliomyelitis and Abuja. Clicking on this cell, I'm able to see all the result set, all the documents that are talking about the selected argument. the selected information. As I have mentioned before, you will see all the constraints that compose this Boolean query here in the search bar. And you can see in the first result of this query that we have polio, not poliomyelitis, but polio. The system has identified a term not basing on its form or on its form, but on its meaning. Whenever I have polio, I know that I'm talking about poliomyelitis. Finally, the analyst can analyze the text of a single document and can see in the text highlighted all the information that he needs in different color, based on the customization that we have developed for this customer or analyst or for this domain. We have also the feature more like this that consent to the analyst to see the documents that are similar to the one that he or she is analyzing. The similarity is based on an algorithm that we can customize on the needs of our analysts, of our customer. Last but not least, we have also the feature notes that consent us to write some useful information, useful note, in order to create a report or a final document that we can use for our analysis and some other task that is useful for an analyst. Okay, I think that that's all for now. And if you have any question, feel free to put this question on the chat or can you ask me? Thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alessandro. A very impressive demonstration. And now I will leave the floor to Stanislava. The focus of this SWOT analysis session led by Stanislava Stanislava Krajinova is the section chief in the Crisis Management and Disaster Response Center of Excellence in Sofia. We want to discuss with the attendees if, in their opinion, what are their perspectives, if medical intelligence is able to support operational scenario like we saw in Borno. So this is the topic of the discussion. Later, I will collect all the observations, and you can feel free to contact me via email or WhatsApp and keep in touch. In the next 2 weeks, together with Michelle, we are going to write the report for OCHA, providing the achievements of this session, and of course the following contacts, and proposing 2 or 3 action items for the way ahead. So please, Stanislava, can you hear me?
Yes, Walter, I can hear you. Actually, I have prepared something during the session. I can share my screen with the SWOT analysis. It will be related with the Borno scenario, and as you told, with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that medical intelligence can provide in terms of the situation presented in this scenario.
Yeah, perfect, Stanislava, because so far we talked among us, among panelists, so we didn't give so much room to attendees, but using the chat, they are able to interact with you.
Yes, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, I can.
So about the strengths, you have some suggestions here. You can elaborate more So regarding the scenario, I think that the strength that is related to the achieving the objectives in terms of the internal characteristics of the organizations. So the strengths here are that all key humanitarian clusters are active with good government participation. If the participants have any other suggestions here, we can add them.
And Stanislava, also our panelists, not only
Yes,
attendees.
Yes,
it's open to everybody.
I mean everybody, yes, participants.
Yeah, except me, except me, because I'm not an
Why
expert.
not? Why not? You also.
It's all hazards, one health. Therefore, everybody is expert for something that might be relevant, in my opinion. So, Walter, I think you are as well.
Okay, so if you have any other suggestions or you don't agree with some of the proposals here about weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, have in mind that, as I will repeat, strengths and weaknesses are related with how the system, the organization functions from within, from inside, and the opportunities and threats represent the environment, the external factors that could affect the situation.
I want to give you, Stanislava, excuse me. I want to give you another suggestion for reflection. The first time I saw the medical intelligence platform demo, it was in a military medical command, and it was my first impression was that this kind of tools are mostly suitable for strategic planning, for strategic analysis. My challenge was to try and to see if a tool like this, or like those that the World Health Organizations uses, are able to support also planning and conduct in an operating scenario. So restricting to a region, restricting to an operation. And in particular, when we are not talking about medical operations, like could be Ebola or something like that, but to provide some more insight to the planners, to the response branch, for example, of OCHA or other organizations, when they have to deploy in a theater where there is, for example, a natural disaster or a complex emergency. But of course, they have to know if there is any new threat coming, or if there is any other kind of risk, like, for example, in the case of Northeast Nigeria, we saw armed groups and terrorism. So this is my challenge. Could we use this kind of intel from open sources that is not military, that is not Secret Service intel? Could we use this to improve our insight in the case of humanitarian operations? And how feasible is it? Is it difficult to learn, to train? Is it expensive for an organization to purchase such tool, or to train the analysts? Because I suppose you need analysts. Not everybody could be able to use the platform. And what are the risks from the privacy, from the legal point of view, in for example, exploiting tweets, or in the past there were it was very easy to geolocate tweets. Now it's not so easy, but so this kind of discussion, and I don't see very so. If you can contribute, because
yeah, Walter,
we need more wording.
maybe I can, because we work on that, that's our daily job, maybe I can actually rebound on what you said. It's you highlighted main challenges, so I can just confirm these are the challenges we're facing. Maybe I can rename some of them. It's a big question whether OSINT, which is also used by Secret Service and military intelligence, whether open source intelligence, how useful it is. And I think what we discovered is that any intelligence without using the context is not very useful, especially open source intelligence. So what we are facing right now is that there are limitations to using just open source intelligence, or to just in manual way, in using algorithms to discover content, to link content. This is the major challenge, basically, and the major weakness we're facing globally is inaccessibility or unavailability of relevant information on time. So I would put that in weakness, because this is basically the key of all weaknesses we have at the moment. Irrespectively whether the information is confidential or not. We have non-confidential information that is not accessible. And historically, it seems that public health and public health intelligence as a part of it was looked in silos for all the historical reasons. Now we have World Wide Web, we have network, we are networking. We need to use technology more to basically provide networking capabilities. So I think that's the opportunity, maybe part of the opportunities. I'd say that, you know, we need. It's always difficult when you have SWOT analysis. Weakness is that is not available. Opportunity is basically existence of the World Wide Web, of the network, where we can actually we have infrastructure. Infrastructure exists. Another weakness that we know, and we actually highlighted this in Health Intelligence Forum. I don't like the name. Intelligent health, which means that there's an unintelligent health, which I don't know about. Health intelligence will be different. We highlighted in a panel of 60 participants that the infrastructure in some parts of the world, and in particular on African continent, for example, is not good enough, not because of the governance and not because of, but actually because of also the world's largest players, the vendors of the infrastructure. I worked for one, so I allow myself to say that. So the weakness is infrastructure as well in some parts of the world, but opportunity is the technology exists, and it's not that expensive if we network and help each other. The threats, I don't know about the threats, but again, with the strength that we have at the moment is the biggest strength that I see at the moment is that now we have awareness that intelligence in health, people's health, I like, it's not population, it's people health or individuals' health, but nevertheless intelligence is needed, and it's a key discipline that needs to be invested in. So we have a lot of interest in helping with the field.
Irene,
some questions you had.
Thank you very much. Irene, what is your perception about when you see this kind of analysis applied to your region, let's say one of the regions under your responsibility?
Oh, thank you, Walter. I was just looking at the issue of military intelligence vis-a-vis security threat. So, for example, in the case of COVID, as it's non-discriminatory. So if, for example, the government is going to look at COVID as a general security threat, then probably it could be more helpful in terms of providing data, but that is on a very thin line. Definitely, it would take a lot of coordination. But yes, we could use the aspect of SIM code, the SIM code civil military coordination. I think we can use that on humanitarian grounds to see that we can have at least some more information. The more information we have, the better. So that then it helps with feeding the AI, and also it helps feeding with the situation awareness. That's what I'm looking at right now.
Thank you.
if I can add something, Gianluca Sezzidoni, expert AI. Can I?
Yeah.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with the user regarding OSINT, so open source intelligence and medical intelligence, that is an opportunity. At the same time, there is, I don't know if weakness or threats regarding fake news, because on the web, either surface, deep and dark, there is a lot of fake news. So also user mentioned about credibility of the news. This could be inserted in this SWOT analysis, I don't know in which square, but it's a relevant information we can consider while facing with OSINT or MEDINT, so facing with information coming, not validated information coming from the web. Again, surface, deep, dark. Last week I discovered also the gray web, so new web. So every 2 days there is a new web. And the strength is that, again, it was mentioned before, that technology is ready to understand, to analyze billions and billions of documents, and so to highlight to the end user a few documents he can focus on in 1 day. So each of us, how many documents you can read in 1 day? 15, 10, 20? Surely not 100, not thousands or billions. So there are technologies now that can filter and discover exactly the target the end user is looking for. In the healthcare, in the telecommunication, agriculture, cyber, and all the domains you can face on.
So if I may just comment on the content of this, what we have. So for example, opportunities, the existence of medical intelligence technology. It's not just medical intelligence, it's existence of underlying technology and infrastructure that we can use to build medical intelligence solutions on. But we don't yet have medical intelligence solutions that can help the ways we discuss here. Yeah. And again, I would insist on the biggest weakness of them all, and that is different reasons, but still pretty much high unavailability or inaccessibility of the relevant information and timely. It was mentioned in different contexts by different panelists. When it comes to medical intelligence itself, this is my last comment, I promise. We need to look at this not on government level. I mean, WHO helps member states to connect, share, and help each other. But disease spreads. There's no boundaries. So actually, we need to look at the whole region. We need to look globally. In my opinion, it's a challenge. It's difficulty to get around potential confidentiality problems. Maybe some political or misinformation type of information that will come because of the local politics. But there are ways to get around this, and I think this is also part of what medical intelligence should be all about.
Thank you, Dusan.
Okay, thank you, sir. So political, I cannot hear within the opportunities, political consultations within the region. Okay.
Yes, and maybe we can even extend this not only the regions and not only governments, but also non-governmental organizations, research, so academia, so anyone who is really interested and invests time in. And this is how we actually operate today, and more and more.
Yes, maybe intergovernmental collaboration.
Yeah, but also, I mean, also private sector and academia, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Yeah, maybe just to add on what he has said, but in terms of strength, because already we see that there is some artificial intelligence that is already existing in the private sector, in hospitals. For example, I saw something to do with cancer, I think something to do with something else as well. So if that then can be probably customized or built on as to support the humanitarian responses in terms of available maybe software or IT, that then it becomes a strength that when if they're going to build medical intelligence, it's not going to be from the start. For example, well, Dasan was talking about the algorithms that out there that we could start from. To me, I think it is a strength right now because we are looking at planning for the future, but we can use that right now as a strength.
Yeah, very good observation.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if I may, Irene, you had really, really good point, which is also a complex point at the moment. I think there is a lot of knowledge that was gained over time in healthcare, and this is definitely a strength. I actually came from healthcare to public health, and from AI there to public health. I'm not sure about reusability of the solutions, but I'm quite convinced about reusability of experiences and lessons learned and expertise, and we should do that. I think it's a little bit more complex to build a solution that would cover our needs. We have just started, I think so. So that's a different topic, I guess. But for sure, I mean, this collaboration and this historical boundaries between individual health and people's health should be diminished as much as possible.
Stanislava, do we have any other contributions?
Yes, I'm trying to write everything I'm hearing and from the chat, but let me check. From the chat, we do not have any more contributions. So I think so far we have a lot of...
Sorry,
Okay.
can I ask, in terms of strength, where do we lie in terms of funding, for example, for AI and medical intelligence? I don't know if Walter or anyone else can respond to that. Do we have some research funds or some donors that are willing to put some more funds into this because it's very important?
It's the biggest weakness at the moment, apart from the data, and in my opinion, it's a huge threat. It's a little bit, people have attention, but it's as everything new, we're kind of we're discussing. WHO has some donors. We just started, but it took us a couple of years, very intensive, proof of concepts. We have a system, as we showed you. It's still very, very, very low comparing to, you can pick domain. It's very low.
Yeah, in fact, as I said at the beginning, the average duration of protracted crisis is increasing. So we have more and the longer crisis, protracted crisis, and with the pandemic, donors' resources are smaller than in the past. So probably an approach could be to operationalize the triple nexus, what the UN calls the triple nexus. So to exploit some synergies between the humanitarian action, the international cooperation for development, and the peacekeeping. And also in this case, the military has some resources that could be used by the humanitarians. But of course, there are political and questions. Okay, if we don't have any other contributions, Stanislava, my suggestion is to summarize very, very quickly. And also I invite our panelists and our attendees to contribute to this analysis. I'm going to share in the next days this chart. And I hope that somebody will expand, and also people who did not contribute so far, they can find the time to drop a couple of lines, and this will be useful for a report to OCHA, or maybe also in the future for a paper. I don't know. So Stanislava, the floor is.
So I will send it to you, Walter, but now, as you asked me to summarize, talking about strengths and weaknesses, as you can see, The good features from the situation are that all clusters, humanitarian clusters, are active, and also we have the availability of the data present from the health sector and all the organizations attending on the area. About the weaknesses, there are much more humanitarian needs that identified, and also it is related to a lot of funding, and the financial resources turned out to be not sufficient enough. Also about the weaknesses, there should be one language used, not several languages, in order to avoid misunderstandings. And the access, the issues related with access, it is a major concern, how to reach the inaccessible populations. About threats, there are also active attacks on civilians, IDPs in particular, so we should think more on that direction. The diseases threat they represent is that they reduce resilience of affected population, and also leads to the increase in mortality. You can see that the opportunities, we have a lot of opportunities, and I think it is the most beneficial part of the analysis. Together with the CM court information that should be much more related with providing, with having more related info from the military sector. We also have the presence and the improvement of the existence of health intelligence, and not only, but all technology infrastructure that can help improve the medical support in the region. Here, one of the opportunity is to develop a health intelligence picture that also includes information not only for the local population, but also on combatants and criminal entities. And there for sure should be intergovernmental info exchange between all the presenting organizations on the spot, like NGOs, academia, IOs. Also private sector is very important in order to achieve the resilience. Lessons learned, expertise on the knowledge gained is one very important opportunity that could help in future how to resolve the similar situations in future. And last but not least, the operationalizing of people's access, it what should work in practice, not only to look for ways how to access them, but to put all these intentions in practice in order to exploit the humanitarian access. So this is in a nutshell. And thank you for all participants for providing your ideas. And